Hey guys, welcome to episode 21 of the Always Talking Crime podcast. I'm super excited you're here. So, unless you've been living underneath a rock somewhere, you're probably pretty familiar with Uber and how to use it. But for those of you who may not know, I'm going to explain. Uber is a company where you can request a ride through their app so that a nearby Uber driver can view and accept your request if they'd like. Once they accept your ride request, you get a notification that tells you what the name of the driver is that's coming to get you, what their car looks like, and even what the driver looks like. You can also view where they are on the little map as they come to pick you up. It's pretty cool. I've used it before in the past. After they bring you to your destination, you are able to leave them a review. But what's great is you don't have to have money. You can just jump out of the car. You're able to pay for that ride right through the app. So that way, both the driver gets their compensation and you guys both get to go on about your day. On February 20th of 2016, though, the community of Kalamazoo, Michigan, would be completely shocked and changed forever when a local Uber driver terrorizes their city, leaving multiple victims in his path.
Next tonight here, the deadly shooting rampage in Kalamazoo, an Uber driver charged, and new questions about the 911 call made beforehand. The call from a very concerned passenger passed from dispatcher to dispatcher more than an hour before the rampage. ABC's Alex Perez tonight with the call.
Tonight in Michigan, new scrutiny about how authorities handled a 911 call. The night Uber driver Jason Dalton allegedly went on a shooting rampage, killing 6.
Hi, I'd like to report a crazy driver.
That voice, passenger Matt Mellon, who rode in Dalton's Uber about an hour before the first shooting.
You're kind of driving through medians, driving through the lawn.
Mellon called 911 to report an erratic driver, but then his call was transferred not once,
Okay, I need to transfer you one more time.
but twice, because Kalamazoo City, Township, and County all have separate dispatch operators.
I'm going to transfer you to the city because that's where the accident actually occurred, so hang on 1 second.
Mellon having to tell his whole story 3 times.
I just want to be on the lookout. And
Okay, thank you. I'll let
report
him
to
know.
Uber because I don't think he needs to be picking
Okay, you're
people
going to
up.
have to do that, sir, not us.
Chief Jeff Hadley defends his department's response
We're not going on a manhunt for an erratic driver.
and says operators did issue a be on the lookout for Dalton's vehicle.
And David, the chief tells me long-awaited plans are already underway for a more efficient system that will funnel all 911 calls to a single dispatch so that callers won't have to repeat their stories. David?
It was around 4 p.m. on that Saturday afternoon, February 20th of 2016, when Matt Mellon requested an Uber to take him over to a friend's house. At 4:21, he was picked up by a silver Chevy Equinox that was driven by a man named Jason Dalton. Jason had even brought his dog with him that day, and the dog was sitting in the back seat. I had heard that it was a German Shepherd, and its name was Mia, and oh my gosh, I totally love that part of the story, and honestly, it's probably only one of two parts that I even like of this story, quite honestly. But if I was an Uber driver, I would be totally doing the same exact thing. I'm sure it would be a way to get extra tips, cha-ching, at least from dog lovers. I imagine that there's some people that would be like, I'm allergic or I'm scared of dogs, and I probably wouldn't want those kind of people as my fares anyways. But anyways, Matt sat in the front passenger seat, and they all headed towards Matt's friend's house. When they were only a mile from Matt's house, like he was literally in the car for a short period of time, Jason received a phone call from his child. I guess that his child and Jason's wife were out at a restaurant, having wings for lunch, and they just wanted to know if he wanted them to bring anything home for them. As soon as Jason hung up the phone, though, he suddenly began driving erratically. He started running red lights, he drove into oncoming traffic, and he ignored all the stop signs, driving straight through a median strip, and then he even sideswiped a Ford Taurus. Completely terrified, and rightfully so, Matt begged Jason to stop and let him out of the vehicle, but Jason responded to him like super calmly. Don't you need a ride to your friend's house? Don't you want a ride? And refused to stop. Matt started yelling at him to stop, which made Jason even more agitated. So Matt started pointing at random houses, just saying, that's my friend's house, hoping that it would make Jason stop the vehicle. Finally, when the vehicle did come to a stop, Matt jumped out quickly and immediately called 911, and that's the call that you heard. He gave the dispatchers the description of the vehicle and the license plate number, and the dispatcher put a be on the lookout notification on the vehicle. Honestly, I know you guys just heard the call, and I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I feel that the dispatcher talking to him came off as very disrespectful, very rude, and quite condescending. I guess on one hand, we have to figure that they get calls all the time for, people speeding and erratic drivers. Police can't really do anything about it unless they see that erratic driving and speeding for themselves. So there was really no way of knowing how this day was going to end up, but at the same time, being a rude bitch is never called for. So if you're that dispatcher and you're listening to this podcast, yeah, girl, I hope that you do your job much better now, because that I couldn't believe it. I think my jaw was hanging open the first time I ever heard that call. So it's like, if you don't like doing your job, you should just go get a new one. Anyway, I'm confident, though, that this did become a learning opportunity for that dispatcher and the police in general by the time that everything was said and done. It's really unfortunate that the city and the county dispatchers were not all in one, and he had to be sent to the other one, and he had to keep repeating his story. So I don't know. The whole thing was super, super unfortunate. But Matt also filed a complaint within the Uber app and emailed the app's customer service directly. At this time, back in 2016, Uber was newish, and they weren't even in every city. And Uber did not have a customer service phone number, so there was no way that Matt could speak with anyone directly. That in itself is terrifying. But thankfully, nowadays, there's an option to call the Uber helpline directly from the app. At 4:34 p.m., Jason returned to his home and called his wife at the restaurant. She must have still been at the restaurant eating, and he asked her for the keys to their Hummer H3. She had them with her, so they planned to meet up at his parents' house. I think that his parents' house was kind of in between their home and the restaurant that she was eating at. Before Jason left, he loaded up some weapons into his vehicle. He had a Glock 19 as well as a bulletproof vest. At 5:15 p.m., on the way to meet his wife, he got another notification from Uber. It was a ride request from a 15-year-old girl whose name was Macy. She was requesting that the driver pick up her boyfriend at an apartment complex that was called The Meadows. When he arrived at the apartment complex, Jason didn't see Macy anywhere, so he started calling her phone to ask where she's at. I guess he didn't understand that he was picking up Macy's boyfriend. And from what I've heard by doing my research, is that when Macy put the address into the Uber app, it sent Jason to kind of like the administrative office on the property and not the actual like apartment or unit number. So, he began to get upset and irritable with Macy finally before just hanging up on her, okay? Which if I were Macy, I'd be like, okay, but we have to think that this is Macy's like a teenage girl, and she probably didn't completely put the address in right. She may have not put the unit number. So, it's entirely possible that, I don't know. I think Jason probably would have been pissed off no matter what. But anyways, he was just having a bad day, that's for sure. So anyways, he hung up on Macy, pissed off. And after that, he pulled up to a woman named Tiana Carruthers. Now, Tiana was walking her daughter and 5 other girls to a friend's house so that all the girls could play. Just as they began crossing the street, the Chevy Equinox pulled up to them. Jason rolled down his window and he asked her if her name was Macy. And of course, Tiana said no. He drove off, but Tiana kept her eyes on him. She noticed that he was driving very fast through the apartment complex, and it was pissing her off because kids were present. Jason whipped his car back around and came back towards Tiana and the girls. He suddenly slammed on his brakes, pulled out his gun, and pointed it right at Tiana. She immediately screamed at the girls to run, and do not come back. Tiana also started running, but fell after being struck by a bullet. Jason fired 15 rounds, and 4 of them hit Tiana. Multiple neighbors heard the shots, and they all came out to see what was going on. Tammy George, who was one of the neighbors, came out as she saw Tiana, and Tiana was just asking about the girl. She didn't give a shit about herself. She was like, are the girls okay? Are the girls okay? And, this is like the second thing that I like about this story, because Tiana is a freaking badass bitch. So she didn't care about herself. She was making sure that the girls were okay. In one of the many 911 calls that were made from the Meadows, you can hear Tiana asking about the girls. And finally, someone told her, we've got the girls. And quite literally, because of Tiana blocking those bullets from hitting any of them, not one single girl was harmed at all. And like I said, Tiana herself had been shot 4 times. 1 bullet entered her left thigh. It fractured her femur. Another bullet hit her in the right thigh, fracturing that femur too. The 3rd shot hit her left arm, and it fractured, the bone in her upper arm and, messed it up a lot. And the 4th and final bullet traveled through her abdomen and lodged itself in her liver. And as a matter of fact, according to an interview that I watched on 2020, you can find this on YouTube. I will probably put it, I'll link it in my case sources here. So if you guys want to just click on it, you can go and see this freaking badass bitch for yourself, because she is awesome. The bullet in her liver is still lodged there to this day. And quite frankly, she is incredibly lucky to be alive today. But we are definitely going to be calling Tiana the badass bitch of the day. Amazing, amazing lady. Listening to so many of these stories, and this one particularly, like, you have to stop to ask yourself, like, how would you respond in that situation? And I would always love to believe that I would be able to keep my wits about myself, and I would be able to be as incredibly awesome as Tiana was, but you just never know. You just never know what you're going to do, how you're going to respond in that situation unless you're in it. But anyways, only 1 minute after that shooting, Jason's silver Equinox was seen running a red light, and it sideswiped another vehicle. The person in the car he hit immediately called 911 to report the hit and run. At this point, the Equinox had very noticeable damage to it, so he went over to his parents' house to meet his wife and kids there. When he arrived, he lied to his wife, Carol, and told her that he had been sideswiped by some disgruntled taxi driver who must have been totally pissed off that Uber was in town taking so many of their customers from them. He left to continue working, but he took his parents' Chevy HHR instead. This is so eerie and strange, but before he left, he handed Carol a gun. He instructed her not to go to work on Monday, not to take kids to school on Monday, and simply said, I can't tell you what I'm about to do, but when you watch the news tonight, you'll know it was me. Crazy. You gotta wonder what was going on in Carol's head, what the hell? I don't know if she just brushed it off or whatever, but that would just be really weird to have somebody say to you. Jason left and continued picking up customers, but nothing remarkable or out of the ordinary happened during those rides. That's so weird, right? Just random. So after shooting a bunch of people, then he just gives regular rides with, no craziness. The only thing that the passengers all noted was that they were expecting a ride in a silver Equinox, but a little black HHR pulled up instead. Jason quickly explained it away and told them all that he was having car troubles that night, and he ended up having to take a different vehicle. It was reported that there wasn't anything about his demeanor that was at all off-putting to them. At 10:01 p.m., Jason pulled up to a Kia dealership. Rich Smith was there with his son Tyler, as well as Tyler's girlfriend, who was named Alexis. Tyler was interested in buying a truck, so they were there just checking some out and came upon a Ford F-150 that he really liked. So some people are like, well, why would they be there so late at night, when the dealership is closed, checking out trucks? And honestly, in my opinion, that's the best time to go and look, because that way you don't have car salesmen breathing down your neck. And if you're a car salesman, don't be offended, because I'm also a car salesman. I've been in the car business now for 3 years. I took about 6 months off last summer. But yeah, they force you pretty much to be super pushy and run out there. And I remember getting in a lot of trouble at one dealership if I went out there and talked to them and say they were just looking. Say the customer's my kid is turning 16 in 3 months, so we're just kind of looking around at what's out there. If I just said, oh, okay, cool, come back and see me in 3 months, if I did not bring those customers into the building somehow and meet my manager or get my manager to come out there and talk with them, then I would get in the biggest trouble, because you always want the management to also talk with them, and they're very pushy. So I don't know if you've ever been car shopping, but yeah, not all of them, but they can be pushy, and for the most part, they don't probably want to be pushy. Maybe some of them do, but I do not like being pushy. But anyways, little side note. But anyways, they were looking at this Ford F-150, that Tyler seemed to like. And Alexis was staying in the car while the two guys were out looking at it. And girl, I get it. Like, I would have totally just been sitting inside myself. But this is when Jason walked up to the guys out of nowhere. Jason approached Rich and Tyler and asked them what they're looking at. When Rich and Tyler turned to face Jason and tell him that they were looking at this blue truck, Jason immediately started shooting. Ultimately, he fired 18 rounds, hitting one of them 9 times and the other one 7 times. Alexis, who was still unseen by Jason, ducked down in the back seat, fearing for her life, of course, after this was all like playing out in front of her. Can you even imagine? Like, it wouldn't even seem real to have that be happening suddenly. So Alexis didn't have her phone on her for some reason, which is puzzling because it seems to me like she's a younger girl, maybe a teenager, and don't they just have their phones like almost like glued to their hand, like an extra appendage? You know what I mean? So I'm kind of confused at why she didn't have her phone, but she didn't. So she had to sit there and hide and wait until Jason was gone in order to get out of the car and go and get Tyler's phone out of his back pocket so that she could call 911. There were also some witnesses across the street at Burger King who also called 911, as well as someone who was just simply driving by and saw Jason shooting at Rich and Tyler. So after this Kia shooting, Jason took off and appeared at first to have left on foot. But when the police arrived to the dealership, they had K9 with them to catch Jason's scent, but the scent didn't go far before it ended abruptly. This indicated that he more than likely drove off in a vehicle. So he must have jumped right back into the HHR. So something that's interesting is that none of the case sources could confirm it, but I'm assuming that when Jason met his wife and switched vehicles, he didn't take his German Shepherd with him anymore. I think that he had left the German Shepherd, I'm assuming, with his wife and kids. Because otherwise that would have been like really awkward when the K9 showed up. And then, because they're usually German Shepherds. In fact, my second ex-husband, I want to say one of my ex-husbands. I know I've said it before, but the first two husbands are for practice. My second ex-husband was actually a dog handler and kennel master in the Navy. And so we were around like a lot of their dogs at the kennel. And oh my gosh, they're just so amazing and smart. So anytime I see a canine or anything, and I know you're not supposed to like just go up to them, pet them and everything, but they are so freaking cool and just awesome. Just simply awesome. But could you imagine like when the canines got there and they're just like, okay, like one of the bad guys is another German Shepherd, you know? But I'm just assuming that the dog wasn't there. So at the time, police were not yet tying the two incidents together, like this one and the shooting with Tiana, and the kids at the apartment complex. Probably since, both incidents had totally different cars reported. About 10 minutes, and it's Kalamazoo, Michigan, too, for the record. And it's not a huge city. It's between Detroit and Chicago. And I'm actually from Michigan. I'm from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So Kalamazoo is in like the northern, it's in like the north, I guess it'd be northwest corner. So it's closer, to the Chicago, like the Illinois border. And I haven't spent a lot of time there, but I have been there before. But down like in lower Michigan, I don't want to sound like a bitch, but, there's going to be a lot of crime. There's more criminal activity there than there is in my hometown, which is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. There still is, and I'm going to probably talk about some of those crimes in future episodes because they're wild, but this kind of stuff gets reported often. Let's just say that. So anyways, about 10 minutes after the shooting at the Kia dealership, a third shooting occurred at a Cracker Barrel that was just 5 minutes away. At 10:21 p.m., dispatchers received a phone call from a witness who said that multiple shots were fired into cars in the parking lot of the Cracker Barrel restaurant. And I love me some Cracker Barrel. And every time I go to Cracker Barrel, not that you care, but I'm going to tell you anyways, I always have to get breakfast. And I know they have other good food, but it's the breakfast for me. Sorry, not sorry. A group of friends at Cracker Barrel were named Mary Lou Nye, Mary Jo Nye, Judy Brown, Barbara Hawthorne, and a little girl who considered Barbara to be her grandmother by the name of Abby Hopf. They had all eaten together at the Cracker Barrel earlier that night before they went to see a performance at a local theater. After leaving the theater, they were taking one of the ladies back to her car that had been left in the Cracker Barrel parking lot while they were gone. On the left was a gold minivan, and on the right was a maroon sedan. Jason pulled up and approached Mary Lou Nye. He asked her if she, quote unquote, had $1 to spare to make America great again, which is a fucking weird thing to say. She told him that she didn't have any money to spare, and he immediately opened fire on the van. The woman in the sedan started screaming, so he went over to the car and opened fire on them. Barb and some other witnesses to the crime called 911 right away, and when police arrived, they tried to help Barb and realized that no one else appeared to be alive. But then they noticed Abby in the front seat. One of the officers yelled, "There's a kid in the front," and he tried getting Abby's attention. Abby appeared to be alive, but she was suffering from a gunshot to the head. After the ambulance took her away, one of the officers said, "One kid is in the ambulance, probably gonna die." It's so sad. Meanwhile, Barb was still conscious, and they tried to get her out of the vehicle to receive help when one man suddenly told police that they had seen the shooter drive off in a black or dark blue HHR. Barb and Abby both made it to the hospital, and their families were called. Abby's parents arrived to find her barely clinging to life. Sadly, Barb passed away just as her nephew arrived. Abby's prognosis was so poor that they began removing her off of the life support and started to prepare to take her to surgery so that they could harvest her organs. Abby's mom laid her head on Abby's chest as she started to say her goodbyes and told the nurse that she swore she could hear a heartbeat coming from her daughter's chest. The nurse came over to confirm this, and she could hear the heartbeat as well. So the nurse called in for help, and Abby's mom said, "Abby, if you can hear me, just give me a sign." And OMG, this makes me cry happy tears, and it's the third thing that I love about this story. I guess there was more than two. Abby squeezed her mom's hand. Go, Abby. Abby miraculously survived being shot in the head, and over time she learned how to walk and talk again. In an episode of 2020 called The Deadly Ride, Abby was interviewed, and it was just amazing to see how far she has come. Yet another completely badass bitch of the day. I love stories when people survive. Abby carried on conversation with no speech impediments or any other indication whatsoever that she had survived a literal gunshot to her head. And the only thing left behind to remind her about the incident is the dent that still remains in her skull. Meanwhile, during all this going on at the hospital, Jason is still fucking driving around Kalamazoo, accepting more Uber rides. At this point, the news of the shootings were being broadcast on the news and radio, so some people were becoming more aware. However, they were mostly being told that the shooter was driving a silver Chevy Equinox. So when Jason would arrive, in an HHR, his passengers even jokingly asked him, are you the shooter? And kind of like laugh it off, but they didn't put two and two together because it wasn't an Equinox, At 12:36 a.m., after pulling over multiple HHRs, police finally found and approached Jason Dalton's vehicle after pulling him over. They had guns drawn, and when Jason got out of the car, they cuffed him right away without any incident, and he was put into the police car peacefully. So, just who in the fuckity fuck is Jason fucking Brian Dalton? I'm going to tell you. Jason Dalton grew up in Indiana, and he moved to Kalamazoo during high school. During school, he was a co-captain of the football team. He made good grades. He got along well with everybody, including his peers. As an adult, he married Carol, and they had 2 kids together. In fact, they were married for about 20 years, and Jason was working as an insurance adjuster. In his spare time, he liked to work on cars and collect guns. Those who know Jason have said that he was always upbeat, nice, friendly, gregarious. Nobody ever saw any of this coming, so it was super puzzling. Jason became an Uber driver shortly after Uber came to the city of Kalamazoo. He was wanting to save up money so that he could take his family on a vacation, and he thought this would be a perfect side hustle, an extra stream of income. Like nowadays, it seems like everybody needs to have additional income streams, I mean, I've got extra income streams, and I know a lot of other people that do as well. But anyways, Jason always had decent reviews from his previous Uber riders. So it leads us to ask the question, what on earth could cause a seemingly normal 45-year-old married man, a father, to just suddenly snap and go on a fucking murderous rampage? Well, according to Jason, he had the answer. So you guys are going to have to let me know what you think of his answers. Anyways, let me tell you first, and then I'll kind of tell you my opinion. But anyways, Jason said that on that fateful day in February of 2016, he had opened his Uber app and it suddenly took over his body. He stated that when the app opened, he saw the Eastern Star, he tapped it, and then the app displayed a devil head. So he tapped that, which makes me think why? Why would you fucking tap on a devil head if it appeared, okay? Why? I just wouldn't. I probably would just drop my phone. But anyways, once Jason tapped the devil head, he said, quote unquote, that's when all the problems started. Jason said, quote, it was red when it first started and switched from red to black. And when it switched to black mode, it has complete control over you. Jason had absolutely no criminal record whatsoever, no history of marital trouble. There wasn't any financial trouble, and he didn't have any mental health issues either. There was literally not a damn thing that could prepare those who knew him for this. Like, imagine watching the news and hearing that this guy, this upstanding guy that was super likable and super successful and had this great life, was on TV after being arrested for something like this. So understandably, it came as a complete shock. So when it came time for legal proceedings, Jason was tested for his mental competency and he passed. During one preliminary hearing on May 20th, which was exactly 3 months after the shootings, Tiana Carruthers, who is that badass bitch, the victim of that first attack at the apartment complex, she took the stand and she testified, which, couldn't have been easy to do. I mean, necessary, but that's how strong of an amazing of a woman and person that she is. Suddenly, Jason started blurting out a bunch of nonsense right there in court about, quote, bags, old people with old black bags, unquote, before his attorney urged him to stop talking. And I don't even understand what that would mean. Tiana began crying and tried to compose herself when then he started yelling, "Take it, take it, take it," which caused Tiana to just completely lose it, and understandably so. We have to remember that this was only 3 months after she had been shot 4 times by this psychopath. Well, he wasn't a psychopath because, he passed the mental competency test, but, he did psychopathic things. So, but anyways, tensions were super high, and I can't even begin to imagine the amount of PTSD Tiana had to have been experiencing at that point. The officers in the courtroom grabbed Jason by his orange jumpsuit and started to lead him out of the courtroom, but Jason was refusing to get out of the chair. The deputies guided him, and he, this is weird, but he literally just let his feet drag while the deputies were moving him. Can you guys picture that? But it was crystal clear that he was trying to act like a crazy person and take advantage of the situation, while he was in front of a judge. On June 6th, Jason's attorneys announced that they'd be presenting an insanity defense. So he had to undergo another psychiatric evaluation, and it was supposed to last for at least 60 days. The trial kept getting stalled and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, but the results of his evaluations finally came back. The results showed that Jason did not meet the requirements for an insanity defense. Yay! So on January 7th of 2019, which was many years later, Jason finally gave up and pled guilty to all counts against him, which included 6 counts of murder, 2 counts of assault with intent to commit murder, and 8 counts of using a firearm during the commission of a felony. He was sentenced to life in prison for no chance of parole. I love that when they do that because, he doesn't deserve to be paroled. I always get confused when people get a life sentence, but then they're granted parole after a certain amount of time. And there's some cases where you're like, okay, they deserve, to possibly, if, they change their ways and, they're sorry for, what they did when they were young or whatever, I don't know. Every case is different, but let's just suffice it to say that I'm glad, that he's not going to get a chance to get out, because it always pisses me off when it's they get a life sentence, but they're going to be eligible for parole in 7 years. I honestly, myself personally, think that's bullshit, but, no, he was sentenced life in prison, no chance of parole. He is currently imprisoned in what's called the Oaks Correctional Facility. And his wife, Carol Dalton, is no longer his wife. She filed divorce papers in Kalamazoo County Circuit Court just days later, stating that there has been a breakdown in the marriage relationship. I hope that Carol and her 2 children are doing well, and I hope that they've been able to move on with productive lives. And like, honestly, I feel for all the victims. I feel for the surviving victims, because I think that a lot of time, like, survivors will feel guilt that they survived. I feel, of course, terrible for the people who were murdered, the 6 people who were murdered that day. I feel for all of their families because, you know, they lost a loved one so senselessly. And that would be really hard. But going back to Carol and Jason's children, like, I can't even imagine. Like, okay, I'm not going to go into great detail, but when I was in middle school, my dad was in prison for a few years. And, of course, I had to go through a lot of bullying and teasing, and I lived in a super small town, and, you know, quite honestly, it was very embarrassing. It was embarrassing for me. It was embarrassing for my mom. It was embarrassing for our whole family. And so anyways, I just really feel for the kids. I feel for everybody, but I really feel for the kids because this is something that, you know, they're going to have to spend a lot of time, and hopefully they get some therapy to be able to overcome, because even though they didn't do it, they still have to live with the stigma of having a parent that did these things. So my thoughts and prayers are with everybody, but especially with them, just based on the fact that, you know, I kind of know how they must feel. So as far as the whole story about, like, the devil making him do it and all that kind of stuff, what do you guys think about that? I'm going to post this story on Instagram like I always do. And if you guys want to have a conversation, maybe post some comments about, like, what you think about that. Like, I believe in the devil, but do I believe that the devil took over Jason's body, personality, made him do all these terrible things? Like, I don't know. I mean, I watch a lot of scary movies, and I guess it's possible, but honestly, I don't believe it. I can't really explain why he did that after being reported as being such a nice person, successful person, likable person. But, you know, there had to have been something that just made him snap. And my personal opinion, which doesn't really mean shit, but hey, it's my podcast, so I'm going to tell you my personal opinion. I don't think that it had anything to do with the devil making him do it. I think that is very bizarre. But anyways, it's not like his head spun around completely in a circle like on The Exorcist or anything when he was driving these people around. If that had happened, if that had been reported, then I might believe it. But anyways, oh my gosh, like, crazy, crazy ass stories. But that's it. And my dogs are coming around staring at me because I told them before I started recording, because it's Thursday for me. I always record on Thursdays whenever I can. I teach a Zumba fitness class in the morning. I either run errands or I go to the gym across the street that I'm a member at. I don't like working out at the same gym that I teach classes at for various reasons. I don't remember if I've told you before, but I'm not going to tell you now. I just go across the street. I have a membership. Me and my boyfriend have memberships over there. Either that or I run errands, and my legs are fried from my workout. Ran a couple errands, came home, took a shower, put on a bikini. So I'm sitting here in a bikini right now. And the girls know that I am taking them to the beach because beaches love beaches. And my two girls, they love swimming. So I am taking them out to a place called Fort Pickens National Seashore. And we are going to find a little secluded part of the beach that they love. And they are going to get to go swimming and running around. And Judy June right now is like all up in my grill, all excited because she heard me say the word swimming, because she loves swimming. So they're going to be super excited. Maybe I'll post a video or something of them in my story. So maybe make an Instagram post or something. But they are all about the beach. So, and they're cute. What else did I want to tell you guys about? Oh, so do this for me right now while you are listening to this podcast. I don't know what platform you are listening on, but do me a huge, enormous favor, please. I need you to go to the platform and hit the follow button if you have not already done so. I also need you to rate this podcast for me, and it would be super, super sweet and special if you would rate it 5 stars, but really just rate it honestly, what you think this podcast deserves. I'm just a little baby podcast, rockabye baby, like I'm growing. I'm going to be learning a lot along the way, so I love constructive criticism. So if you could leave me a review, or if you could message me on the gram. I'm on Instagram. I'm at Always Talking Crime Podcast, and then Queen Kimi to You is my personal Instagram account. Some of you are already following me over there, so feel free to message me anytime, because there's like quite a few of my listeners already that I chat with here and there, and like seriously, it makes my entire day so much happier, just getting to know as many of you as I can, like on a personal level. So if you could go ahead and just give me some constructive criticism if you have any, because I'm always about learning how to get better. And I just kind of did this on a whim because I love listening to true crime podcasts. Some I think are great, and I have no constructive criticism for them. And then I found that searching for other true crime podcasts, that some of them are just so incredibly short. It could be a case that other podcasters that I love do maybe 2 parts on. So let's just say 2 hours. And then I'll come across this other podcast that sums up the whole story in a 20 or 25 minute episode. And I'm just always left scratching my head. So I saw the opportunity to kind of, put it out there and create something myself. I love creating this content. So if you are so inclined to do those things for me, and also I have a Patreon. I am getting ready also to upload the first June case onto the Patreon. So the May cases, I just started the Patreon in May, so there's a couple extra bonus episodes on there right now. And you can run over there and check those out. There's 3 different tiers. So if you'd like to support this and help me grow, that would be fucking amazing. So if you're so inclined to do that, that's cool. If not, and you just want to keep listening to me here, that's super cool too. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate every listen, every share, every message. So, but yeah, just keep being the fucking awesome people that you are. And I am going to get a beach bag ready and put Junie and Juliet into the back of my car and take them for a car ride. Junebug is just staring at me right now. we're going to go for a car ride to the beach and go swimming. She came running right up to me. You ready to go swimming, Junie Bug? She's so cute. I just love my girl so much. But anyways, guys, love you all and keep talking crime.